When you're racing like when you race a regular Ironman course like Lake Placid, you're right. You're calculating your speed on the terrain, and you're trying to figure out what's my return on investment of watts relative to my overall performance. And that makes sense when you think about the hills and you're pacing yourself on the hills. Like we talked a lot about how you use the terrain to your advantage, right? Like being smart on the uphills, fast on the downhills, right? So just placing it differently. When we talk about Ironman Hawaii, there's a little differential there because the key factor isn't the terrain, as you mentioned, it's the heat. And so the big differentiator in Hawaii is actually how fast can you turn around at Hawaii? Because the sooner you turn around at Hawaii, the less headwind you have on the way back, and the lower the heat will be. Because the sooner, like if you, let's say you took 4 hours to get out to Hawaii and you left at 8 a.m., you're there at noon, that climb at like from 11 to 12 is hot as all get out. And you're going to suffer on that climb, even at your normal watts, and you'll suffer on the way back because the headwinds on the way back are much worse. So actually the math that we want to do is what type of watts can you do for the time it's going to take you to get to Hawaii, the top of Hawaii, and then in Hawaii, we actually kind of shut it down. Because you'll be there early enough that the ride back isn't as bad, and you don't have to work as hard. So the key really is saying, do the math, and we can use tools like Best Bike Split for this. We can say, all right, let's go out and do the math on how long is it going to take Dennis to ride from, Kailua Kona to Hawaii, and we can do the math on the different levels of watts, and it'll give us estimated times and also TSS for that number. So we can say, oh, it's good, Dennis, because we can go back and look at your race on Lake Placid and say, how many TSS did he throw off? So we kind of know where you're at for a good run. We can use that as a benchmark and say, how many TSS does Dennis spend to get to Hawaii? And then we get to Hawaii, we dial the watts down. We kind of put you on cruise control. And the best part about that is not just your performance overall, because you still got to get back. And don't get me wrong, the scenic overlook climb and the Goat Hill climb are all tough on the way back. The differential is that you've dialed those watts down, much like you've talked about being smart on the other Ironman courses. And what you're doing is you're not riding at a high intensity, sustained at the end of a 5.5 hour, 6 hour ride. You're actually riding at a lower intensity. So while your competition is like gutting it out on the heat and they're just trying to play it steady, the cost of being steady in Kona over 5.5 hours, 6 hours is exponentially higher than doing an investment where you go early and then late. So the long and short of it is, when we're thinking about Maryland for you, I would actually recommend that you mimic that performance, which is to say, sure, get on the bike, ride 2-3 miles, get safely out of transition, out of town, get on the flats. And then actually I would want you to do sort of, between 80 and 82 or some version of that percent, not full half Ironman pace, but like just below, even if it was 20 minutes on, 5 minutes off, some sort of like interval game you're going to play. But we're going to do that for about 2 hours, say. From, let's say you start at 15 minutes and you say until 2:15, I'm going to play this game that Coach Patrick told me. And then from 2:15 on, I get to drop it down to 70% and just ride steady and just go in cruise control and be smart. But I'm going to work earlier when it's cooler because the heat will be somewhat of a factor in Maryland, and then we'll go cruise control, and then you can run. And what we're going to learn from that is, what does it feel like to go hard coming out of the water at Maryland? That's going to go right into the mental prep box for Kona. We're also going to learn how your body reacts to that effort overall, like nutritionally, what changed for you in this race versus what you normally do. Mentally, what got hard for you or not? Like, was it actually easier? Like, was it a secret unlock for you, or did it actually make hour 5 or hour 4 miserable for you? We're going to learn that aspect too. And then we're going to see what it does for your run. Because my guess is, like, the real challenge in an Ironman, connecting the Ironman bike and the run, is that fatigue factor you have in the last hour of the bike. The last hour of your bike is the most costly hour of your bike. And then the bike is a low cost relative to the run, but it's the costliest. And that it's the hidden cost of being steady, is that doing the same thing for 2 hours isn't bad. 3 hours a little worse. By 5 hours, it's actually really hard to hold that same number. And even if we were lifting weights with 15-pound dumbbells, in hour 5, 50-pound dumbbells are murder for you. And you're much better off lifting 50-pound dumbbells in the first hour and dropping down and taking it easy later on. So let's redistribute your effort a little differently to mimic what we're going to do in Hawaii. And that'll give you information and then also prepare you. Like, we can kind of stress test the strategy. And most importantly, it gives you a game to play in Maryland. So you're not like just doing it for fitness.